If you're in the market for a family EV with 3 rows, these two are your top choices. The Kia Carens Clavis EV and the newly launched Mahindra XEV 9S. Now both these EVs are in their long range guys here. The Kia gets a 51.4 kilowatt hour battery, the Mahindra gets a 79 kilowatt hour battery, and the interesting thing is that both these long range versions start at 22 lakh rupees. So which one is the one for you? That's what we're here to find out. Now when it comes to the design, both these have a different character. The Clavis EV takes a more MPV route with the long elongated look, and the XEV 9S takes the traditional boxy silhouette inspired from the XUV 700. In terms of dimensions, length, width and height, it is the XEV that is the slightly bigger car, but when it comes to the wheelbase, the Clavis is the longer one. Wheels, you have 18 inches on the XEV and you have 17s on the Clavis, but it's not like they look disproportionate on either. It's not like you'd want this car with bigger wheels. But of course, design is quite subjective, so we'd love to know your thoughts on which one do you think has the better look. So do let us know down in the comments.
Both EVs get LED headlamps and tail lamps, aero-optimized wheels and rear wiper with washer. The XEV gets piano black cladding which needs a bit more effort to maintain compared to the standard cladding on the Clavis EV, and what's also impressive on the Kia is this paint shade with the matte finish that looks unique and upmarket.
Now when it comes to the boot space, you'd imagine the XEV with its bigger overall size would be better, but that's not really the case. With 3 rows up, it is actually the Clavis that can accommodate a bit more. As you can see, this camera bag fits comfortably, no problems. But if you try the same on the XEV, you'd struggle for room. What you have to do is get it out of that comfortable recline for the 3rd row, and then it has slightly more space. Of course, no electric tailgate on either one of these, but that is the compromise. Now overall, with 3 rows down, you get over 600 liters of boot on the Clavis EV, 500 liters on the XEV 9S. So practicality wise, it is the Clavis that comes up on top. Now while the Clavis EV was better in terms of boot space, when it comes to the frunk, the XEV 9S has the edge. 150 litre frunk compared to 25 litres, 60 kg limit compared to just 10 kgs. And once you have the charging cables, you can't really use the frunk in the Clavis for much more. But in the XEV 9S, you can actually put the same bag that wasn't really fitting in the 3rd row and still have some space left for your charger. So it really is a lot more practical when it comes to the frunk. Now inside the Clavis EV, you will not be overwhelmed like you would on the Mahindra. There are no triple screens, there's no piano black, there are not much haptic buttons. Yes, the controller is right here and it does not get physical buttons, but it is a lot easier to use. What's also a lot easier to use is the infotainment screen. It's a 12.3-inch unit, nice crisp resolution, and everything is very well sorted. The UX UI especially comparing to the Mahindra is extremely good. You have the digital instrument cluster, very clean in terms of readout, exactly the information you'd want and expect. It's all right here. Steering mounted controls are again very easy to use. Now these are physical buttons which are very nice, very tactile, and quality on the whole is very good as well. Low down, you have a lot of room right here. Now that has been freed up because the gear selector is moved on the steering column right here. So you have all this space that you can use for utilities. You have a wireless charger, USB-A port, a charging socket, and a Type-C port as well. In the center console on the armrest, you have a nice comfortable armrest with a large cubby hole, 2 big cup holders that can be adjusted as well, and of course then you have your other functions for seat ventilation, auto hold, hill descent control, and the 360-degree camera. You also have a big panoramic sunroof, which I think is more for the rear seats. Apart from that, the seat comfort is extremely good. The driver also gets electric adjust for the recline and the seat movement. Height adjust is still manual, but if you're a passenger and if you sit normally, if your legs aren't stretched out, then you will be slightly knees up. So that is worth noting. And speaking of comfort, getting in and out is also very good because the seat position is just right. So if you are someone who struggles with ingress egress, this car is very, very good. You simply walk out and walk in of the cabin. Now get in the XEV 9S and the first you'll notice is just the wow factor. I mean, this definitely is one of the futuristic cars because of this panel right here. It's one piece single glass that houses 3 screens, a 12.3-inch touchscreen, a 12.3-inch passenger screen and a 12.3-inch instrument cluster as well. And all of that is basically packed to the brim. You have so much information and so much happening that it does take you a while. If you buy this car, it's gonna take a good amount of time to get used to exactly how all of this functions. Let's start with the instrument cluster, which is incredibly detailed, lots of color themes, and it looks really nice, but you have so much information packed and the fonts are sometimes a bit too small. So legibility wise, it's not the best, but yes, you do get all your info and it does look very, very techy. Then you have the center screen. Now this is a bit of an issue, especially when you compare it to the Clavis, because that is a very sorted UX UI. This is a bit too cluttered, a lot of it happening, and it's not very easy to use. So you definitely have to pull over, wait, and then go through the menus and sub menus and see what's what. Also, not a single button on the dashboard, not on the bottom half, not on the top half. Everything is concentrated in this touchscreen, the HVAC, the media, it's all in here. What you only have, the haptic buttons, are for your 360-degree camera, your hazard lights of course, and the automatic parking. And a lot of the panels are reflective. Piano black, but it just gets in your way. You've got piano black right here on the bottom of the center console, on this steering panel as well. So it is all very reflective, and in our conditions, it picks up dusts, fingerprints and smudges very easily. So keeping this clean would require additional effort. Then we get on to the comfort. Now the seats are nice and broad, very supportive, ventilated of course, like on the Clavis EV, and you get memory function as well. But in terms of the seating, you are seated knees up, because if you're in the driver's seat, of course your legs are going to be stretched, you're not going to notice it that much. But in the passenger seat, you are going to be quite knees up. As you can see, the floor is high, it is raised, and you do feel that, especially in the front. Apart from that, you've got a big panoramic sunroof, electronic parking brake, you've got your drive modes, the controller right here, and the gear selector right here as well. You open this cubby hole, a wireless charger, 2 Type-C ports, and some space to keep your phone. So yes, practicality wise, I think the Clavis is slightly better because you get so much of that storage space and everything is very neatly laid out and it is more user friendly. But of course, wow factor wise, ambience wise, the XEV 9S will definitely have people talking more.
The passenger screen is just as loaded as the main touchscreen, but it is also quite usable with support for content apps, and it is high resolution with a good audio system overall. That said, a privacy screen would be appreciated to disallow the driver from getting distracted.
Now in the Clavis EV, in the middle row, you'd expect because of the longer wheelbase, it would have a lot more room, but that's not really the case. I'm just over 6 feet tall and I have a decent amount of knee room. My knees aren't really grazing, but if I want more, the seat can be adjusted. And now this is not a problem at all. There's a good nifty tray here as well to get some work done very quickly. The seat comfort is actually quite nice, and you are not that knees up. Yes, there is a slight miss in terms of under thigh support, especially when you compare it to the XEV, but it's not too bad. You also have the backrest that can be reclined for a really comfortable angle. You can absolutely have a nice snooze in here, and there are sun blinds as well, massive sun blinds for the big window, so that's obviously a big relief. Panoramic sunroof, once it's open, will definitely bring in a lot of light and air. It's hot today, so we've kept it shut, and it has a nice thick coating, so that's a good touch as well. You have a center armrest, no cup holders in here, but that's all right. 2 Type-C ports, you have your blower control, and you also have the V12 plug, which means you can plug in your laptops, your other electronic accessories, and get some power into them. You also have a PM 2.5 air filter, air purifier, which in these times I think is very, very important. So that's a nice touch. And overall, you have a nice view out the road. You don't feel claustrophobic. The shoulder line is nice and under your shoulder, so you have a good view, good visibility overall. And you are in a slightly theatrical position, so you are slightly above the front passengers, so you have a good view ahead as well. Really nice and comfortable. The only thing is that 3 abreast will not be that comfortable because of the width. The floor is nice and flat, so someone even sitting in the center has no issues. Headroom is not a problem, knee room is good as well, but it's just the width that this car doesn't have, which the XEV does. So I think that is one area where the Clavis falls short. Apart from that, it is a very nice back seat. Also, while the middle row is decently comfy and gets 3-point seat belts, it misses out on a center headrest. Now, despite having a wheelbase deficit compared to the Clavis EV, space in the 9S is not bad, primarily because you don't have the tray or the air purifier eating into the knee room. But if you want to stretch out a bit more, you can now adjust this seat and then you have some more space. If you feel the backrest is upright, you can of course adjust that and find a nice comfy spot. So very nice and comfortable. You get sun blinds as well that add more comfort. A center armrest with 2 cup holders. You have 65-watt charging ports on the back of each seat, and you also have AC vents along with a wireless charger. The controls for these blowers of course are in the touchscreen, so you can't really do much here. You have to ask the driver, the chauffeur, or someone sitting in the front to control that for you. But space wise, the big advantage is of width. You can easily adjust 3 people in here, which you can't really do on the Clavis EV. Flat floor, so even if you're seated in the center, there is a good amount of room. Headroom is not an issue, and overall it is a nice comfortable place. The other thing worth noting is that because the seats are set high up, you no longer sit completely knees up, and you have a decent amount of under thigh support. The view all round is very good, and the bright upholstery definitely adds to the overall sense of space. And what's also great is that the rear seats are also ventilated, the button for which is right here on each ends.
Both EVs also get a boss mode, with the Clavis getting a manual one and the XEV featuring an automatic.
Now, since these are 3-row EVs, you are bound to use the 3rd row. What the Clavis gets really nice is a one-touch tumble. Very, very easy and convenient. You get in, shut the door, and once you're in, the seat itself is not too bad. Of course, it's upright, it's a bit cramped, but little adjustment to the headrest, little adjustment to the recline, and this seat, it's actually not bad. I mean, sure, you're not comfortable, but for city runs, for short drives, even a guy like me over 6 feet will not have too big of a problem. Headroom, my hair is grazing, but my head's not touching, so that's all right. I have AC vents in the back, that's a good touch. Type-C ports for charging, and I have cup holders as well. And the great thing, because this seat can be adjusted, I can have more room for my legs. So overall, not a bad place to be at all. Now, as we've seen, the XEV 9S is a bigger car in terms of length compared to the Clavis, so 3rd row space should be better. Again, one touch tumble, very, very comfortable. But once you're seated in, you notice that things are not what they seem to be. Firstly, I am seated extremely knees up. Compared to the Clavis, this definitely is a lot more cramped. Headroom also, as you can see, is pretty tight. I'm hemmed in, and this is not a comfortable spot. What I have to do is open up the headrest and hope that the middle passenger adjusts this seat. Now, even after he adjusts the middle seat, it's not like I'm going to be too comfortable, primarily because of the seat positioning. This seat is set on the floor, so I don't have much room to stretch my legs. So even if I have knee room, that's not going to be a comfortable spot. And the headroom, for someone over 6 feet, this is not going to be good. So 3rd row space, Clavis definitely a better choice. You do get blower controls back here, and you do get a charging socket, not a Type-C port. Cup holders, yes, they are part of the package, but I think this is not a place for adults. Kids back here would be fine, but if you want adults to ferry, then the Clavis is the better choice. Now, in this comparison, this is the lesser powered EV, 171 horsepower, 255 Nm from the 51.4 kilowatt-hour battery pack. It's a front wheel drive as well. But when we did the first drive, what we liked about it was just how user friendly it was and just how linear it was. No sudden spikes, no abrupt power delivery. It's very, very smooth. It's quick, it's responsive, but you never feel that neck snapping reaction, and that's actually quite nice. It's actually refreshing and comfortable as well, especially when you're driving it in the city. So power delivery, even in normal mode, is not a problem at all. But if I switch it to sport using just this button right here, it does amp up. But again, it doesn't amp up to a point where it gets uncomfortable. So it is very, very usable in the city. Eco mode, of course, chokes down the power, gives you the best of range. But what you'd really appreciate is just how smooth and easy to drive this car is. Also, as nice as the power delivery is, even the regen works very well in conjunction with the motor. These paddles, you can select the level of regen between 0, 1, 2, 3 and max. Now max obviously would be for bumper to bumper driving, single pedal driving, in which case you don't really have to use the brake pedal. A generous setting would be level 2, which is quite nice, gets you a good amount of regen without having to brake too much. And while you might think, okay, there's a big power deficit, it's over 100 horsepower less, it's also over 500 kilograms lighter than the XEV. So that power deficit doesn't really count for that much. The only issue might be when you're going uphill with a full load, the front wheel drive nature would struggle for traction, but in the city, it's not a problem at all. Now the first thing you notice on the XEV9S is the extra power. 286 horsepower from the 79 kWh battery pack, rear wheel drive. But even in the more docile default mode, it is very responsive. Then there's the range mode, which is supposed to be restrained and choked, but it's really not. It's pretty normal. Then you go on to everyday, which is a lot quicker. And then for some reason, there's also a race mode. Now that is a bit too much, especially for the road. I think it's for your signal to signal jaunts. So power definitely not lacking in the XEV. If you are someone who enjoys enthusiastic driving, this is going to be very impressive.
The XEV9S also gets a boost button on the steering for quick overtakes on the highway, and overall it is clearly the more engaging and responsive between the two.
However, while its rapid acceleration makes it quicker, it's not by much. 0 to 100 kph is just a second off, and 0 to 60 kph is near identical.
When it comes to comfort, however,
speaking of ride comfort, at low speeds the Clavis is a bit firm, and that is only with reference to the XEV. It's not too bad, it's not sharp, but yes, you do feel a slight firmness. However, once you gain speed on highways, triple digit speeds, this thing calms down, it flattens out, and it is actually more stable than the XEV.
the XEV in comparison has a softer setup, which over highway speeds results in persistent vertical movement, which feels unsettling and will induce motion sickness in those prone to it. Even in race mode where the dampers firm up slightly, it doesn't match the Kia's composure.
The trade-off for that soft suspension is that low-speed bump absorption is very good. Over bad roads, bad patches, at city speeds, this thing is very good. It copes very well, and you almost never feel that harshness inside the cabin.
Neither car is particularly sporty, but while the Clavis rolls less through the corners, it's the XEV steering that feels marginally more engaging. Both feature disc brakes all round, though in panic brake tests from 80 kph, the lighter Kia consistently stopped in a shorter distance. Not only is the XEV the larger vehicle, but its bigger 79 kWh battery also makes it nearly half a ton heavier than the Kia Carens Clavis EV. That added mass takes a toll on efficiency, with the XEV returning 6.05 km per kWh in the city and 6.04 km per kWh on the highway in range mode. However, sheer battery capacity works in its favor, translating to an impressive real-world average range of 477 km on a single charge. The lighter Clavis EV by comparison is noticeably more efficient. It delivered 7.45 km per kWh in urban driving and 6.71 km per kWh on the highway, which, due to its smaller 51.4 kWh battery capacity, extrapolates to a real-world range of around 364 km, a substantial 113 km short of the XEV. Charging is another area where the gap widens. The XEV's 409-volt architecture supports DC fast charging speeds up to 175 kW, while the Clavis EV manages to average DC charging rate of just 42 kW. In terms of sheer fitness for purpose, the Kia Carens Clavis EV gets a lot right. Its cleverly packaged cabin is spacious, and its third row is roomier than that of the XEV9S. Pair that with a more tied down highway ride and a more sensible user interface, agreeable ergonomics, and top spec variant that significantly undercuts the XEV on price, the Clavis EV comes across as a practical, well rounded family EV. However, its noticeably lower real world range and much slower fast charging capability are hard to ignore, which weaken its case in this EV comparison. The XEV9S meanwhile makes its case with a starting price comparable to the Kia while offering a more powerful motor, quicker acceleration, and a substantially larger battery pack, resulting in a longer real world range too, important for all vehicles that will do the odd highway run. It also has a stronger road presence and a distinct X factor that adds to its appeal. And when you look at the lower variants that are similarly priced and still well equipped, even with the 3 screen setup thrown in, the XEV9S gives you considerably more car for the money and ultimately feels like the more compelling EV.